From political shifts and economic updates to viral social moments and trending pop culture, we've got you covered with all the information you need to stay ahead. Whether it's breaking news, the latest from social media, or a deep dive into what's really happening on the global stage, you'll find it right here, delivered fast, clear, and to the point.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a deep dive into the future of augmented reality. And our main focus is going to be this super interesting article about Meta's prototype AR glasses called Orion.
Yeah, it's like getting a sneak peek, behind the scenes of what could be huge EE in tech.
It really is. And we all know Meta, or Facebook as it used to be called, they've been teasing these AR glasses for what feels like forever. So what is it about Orion that's different? Why should we care NOW?
Oh, one of the things that struck me right away just from the article is how normal Orion looks. Like, we're not talking about those big, bulky headsets.
That's so interesting you say that because, you do tend to picture some clunky thing when you think AR. So Orion's going for a subtler look, it sounds like.
Definitely. But, and this is the cool part, don't let the whole regular glasses thing fool you. Orion is packed with seriously advanced tech all under the hood.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. The article mentions these things called micro-LED displays and silicon carbide lenses. Can you break those down for us? What's so special about them?
That's where we really start to see how Meta is tackling some of the biggest challenges in AR. So micro-LED, first of all, known for being super bright and energy efficient, which is key for something you'd be wearing all day, right?
Right, makes sense.
And then the lenses, silicon carbide. Crazy strong, scratch resistant, which is always good, but the main thing is how much clearer they are than regular glass lenses, optically speaking.
So it's all about packing a punch, performance-wise, but in a small package that's actually comfortable to wear.
Exactly, but it gets even more interesting. Orion isn't just the glasses, it's actually a three-part system.
A three-part system?
Yeah, so you've got the glasses, obviously, but also a neural wristband, and then this separate thing called a compute puck, which basically acts as the brain for everything. All these parts, they're wirelessly connected.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Where's this all going?
Well, the article suggests that Meta's big idea is for Orion, or some future version of it, to completely replace your smartphone.
Wow, that's a bold move. To think these glasses could one day do everything our smartphones do now, all our communication, entertainment, work, everything.
It sounds pretty wild, right? Straight out of sci-fi. But the technology, judging by Orion at least, it's definitely moving in that direction.
So for someone who's not totally up on all this, what would be the advantage of having all that in a pair of glasses versus just using our phones like we do now?
That's a great question. And the article hints at a few answers. Imagine a world where, I don't know how else to put it, but where the digital and the physical just blend seamlessly.
Okay, I'm with you.
It's like you could have information, directions, even virtual meeting rooms all appearing right in your field of vision. No more looking down at your phone. It's all just there when you need it.
Okay, yeah. I can see how that would be a game changer for things like navigation or just getting info on the go for sure.
For sure. And then think about what it could do for how we connect with people. Like, imagine sharing what you're seeing in real time with someone far away, almost like they're right there with you.
So more immersive than just a video call. They'd actually be seeing what I'm seeing through the glasses.
Exactly. Or picture this. You're working on a project with people who are actually miles apart. But with these glasses, it feels like you're all in the same room.
It sounds like the possibilities are pretty much endless.
The potential is definitely there. But of course, and this is true for any new tech, especially something this big, there are bound to be challenges, downsides we need to think about too.
100%. And we will get into all of that. But first, I want to hear more about what it's like to actually use Orion. The article mentioned the writer got to try it on, interact with it. What was that like?
Yeah, and those firsthand accounts are super valuable. Gives us a sense of how close this tech really is to being something we could all use one day.
So tell me more about this experience. Did it live up to the hype?
Well, according to the writer, it was surprisingly intuitive. They were especially impressed by the hand tracking and how responsive the neural wristband was. It definitely seems like Meta put a lot of work into making interacting with Orion feel natural,
A neural wristband, that's something I definitely want to know more about.
For sure. It's one of the more futuristic sounding parts of the whole system. Basically, it's a wristband but it uses these sensors that can read and understand the electrical signals your muscles are sending to your hands.
So it's actually reading your muscle movement.
Yeah. Electromyography, they call it, or EMG. And it lets you control Orion just by making these subtle hand gestures. You don't even have to touch the glasses.
So no more awkwardly tapping the side of your head or anything like that?
Nope. The whole point is to make the experience more seamless, more intuitive. The writer mentioned navigating menus, selecting things, even playing a game, all with hand gestures. And apparently, it was super accurate, no lag or anything.
Wow, definitely sounds futuristic. But I'm curious about the practical side of things. What could you use this neural interface for?
Well, for one, it opens up a lot of possibilities for people with disabilities who might have a hard time with regular input devices. That's huge.
Absolutely. Accessibility should be a top priority with any new tech.
100%. And then beyond that, it just makes the whole AR experience smoother. Less about you struggling with the device and more about it feeling like an extension of you, if that makes sense.
It does. Sounds like Meta is going all in on making Orion this really immersive, integrated experience.
They are. But that level of immersion, it comes with its own set of challenges and things to consider, especially when you start thinking about the ethics of it all, of a technology this powerful.
And that is a crucial point and a perfect segue into our next segment. And we've talked about how amazing Orion is, all the good it could do, but what about the flip side?
Exactly. What are the potential downsides? What risks do we need to be aware of as we head into this future with AR?
Let's dive into those questions right after this. We're back, and now it's time to flip the script a bit. We've talked about all the cool stuff Orion can do, but what about the potential downsides? What are some of the concerns that come to mind when you think about this technology, especially if it becomes a part of everyday life?
Well, one of the big ones, and the article brings this up too, is data privacy. I mean, think about it. Orion has all these cameras, sensors, constantly grabbing information about you, the things around you.
And Meta's whole track record with data privacy isn't exactly spotless, some might say.
Right. And even if we give them the benefit of the doubt, there's always that risk of a data breach, someone getting access they shouldn't. And with a device like Orion, which is always collecting data, where you're going, who you're with, even what your house looks like, a breach could be really bad.
It's almost like you're carrying around a surveillance camera everywhere.
Kind of, yeah. And that raises the question, are we okay with that? Does all the cool stuff Orion can do outweigh the risks to our privacy? It's something we'll have to figure out as AR becomes more common.
Definitely a tough question. And privacy is just one piece of the puzzle. Another thing that worries me is, what if we get too hooked on this technology? If we start relying on AR for everything, from finding our way around to even just talking to people, what happens when we can't use it for whatever reason?
That's such an important point. The article talked about how immersive Orion feels to use, which sounds great, but it does make you wonder about becoming too dependent on it. If we're always plugged into this augmented world, always getting notifications, always connected, are we going to forget how to just disconnect, to be present in the real world?
It's kind of ironic, isn't it? The more connected we are digitally, the more disconnected we might become from actual reality, actual people.
It's definitely a possibility. And then there's the issue of who actually gets to use this technology. Orion, at least right now, sounds super expensive, not something everyone will be able to afford.
So could this make the digital divide even worse? Where the people who can afford these glasses have access to even more opportunities and experiences than those who can't.
It's a very real concern, which is why it's so important to make sure that new technology, or especially something as potentially game-changing as AR, is developed in a way that benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Right, it's not just about the tech itself, it's about how we use it, how we make sure everyone has a chance to benefit.
Absolutely. And that leads us to another big thing we need to be thinking about, the ethical side of all this. For example, the article mentioned the writer playing that game using Orion's hand tracking and the neural interface.
Yeah, it sounded really impressive how responsive it was.
Totally. But it also got me thinking, how does this kind of technology change how we see the difference between reality and what's virtual? If interacting with the digital world starts to feel this seamless, are we always going to be able to tell where one ends and the other begins?
That's a really interesting and kind of freaky thought. What happens to our sense of reality when it's so mixed with the digital world?
That's a question we need to be asking. And it's not just about real versus virtual, but also about who has the power in this situation. If a device like Orion can just show you information overlaid on the world, who decides what information you see?
You're talking about the possibility of bias, even misinformation, being fed to us directly through our AR glasses.
Exactly, and that information could be tailored to each person based on all the data these devices are collecting. It could influence everything from what you buy to who you vote for. That's a lot of power.
It's definitely both exciting and kind of scary to think about the potential impact this could have.
It really is. And it's more important than ever to have these conversations now while the technology is still being developed. We need to think critically about the consequences, the good and the bad, and figure out some ethical rules for how it's made and used.
So we're shaping this technology in a way that reflects our values, what we care about as a society.
Exactly. We can't just assume that new technology automatically equals a better future. We need to be proactive, ask the hard questions, and demand transparency from the companies making these powerful tools.
It's a joint effort, isn't it? Both the people creating this tech and the people using it need to be responsible.
100%. That sense of shared responsibility is going to be crucial as we move forward into this unknown territory.
Speaking of unknown territory, the article mentioned that Meta's ultimate goal is to have AR devices like Orion completely replace our smartphones. What are your thoughts on that? Is that even realistic? And what would it take to actually make that happen?
That's the million-dollar question. It's hard to say for sure. On the one hand, the technology, based on what we're seeing with Orion, is definitely moving in that direction. The processing power, the intuitive controls, the immersive experience, it could theoretically replace a lot of what we use our phones for now, but...
There are still some pretty big hurdles, right? Before we're all rocking AR glasses instead of our phones.
Oh, for sure. And it's not even just about cramming all the stuff our phones can do into a different device. It's about getting people to basically change how they use technology, how they interact with each other. It's a big ask.
So how do we get there? What are the biggest things holding AR back from really taking off?
Well, the price tag is a big one. The article kind of hinted that Orion, at least in its current form, would be crazy expensive. Like, most people couldn't afford it. So for AR to really replace smartphones, it needs to be within reach for everyday people.
Which is tough, considering how advanced the tech is. It's a chicken and egg thing, right?
Totally. But even if we solve the price thing, there's also just like how used to our phones we are. People are comfortable with them, they're familiar.
I can't even imagine life without my phone at this point.
Exactly. So for AR glasses to really catch on, they need to offer something totally new, something that phones just can't compete with. And that thing, I think, might be those truly immersive, mind-blowing experiences we keep talking about.
Those experiences that really blur the lines between what's digital and what's real, that change how we experience the world.
Exactly. Imagine walking down the street and just knowing things about the buildings you're seeing, the history of the neighborhood, whatever, or reading reviews of that new coffee shop without even having to look it up. It'd be like having X-ray vision for information.
Okay, now that does sound pretty amazing, I have to admit.
Right, it's like something out of a movie. But it shows you just how much potential this tech has to, change everything about how we experience the world. Imagine learning a new language just by looking at stuff and having the translations pop up.
Or finding your way around a new city without ever getting lost.
Exactly. The possibilities are really exciting. But we also can't forget, with any really powerful tool, there's always the risk of it being used in ways that aren't so great.
Right. We've talked about the whole data privacy issue, the potential for addiction, and those ethical questions that come up when you start merging reality with the digital world.
And those conversations are going to be so important moving forward. We need to be excited about this technology, but also, a little bit cautious.
So to wrap up our deep dive into Meta's Orion and the future of AR, I think the big question is, are we on the verge of a technological revolution here? Or is this just another hyped up gadget that will eventually fade away? What do you think?
That is the million-dollar question, and I honestly don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. But what I can say is the technology is definitely moving incredibly fast. Whether or not AR glasses replace our phones, they're going to have a huge impact on our lives in the next few years, I think.
And like we've been saying, it's up to us, all of us, to make sure this technology is used for good to shape the future we want to see.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a future we're all creating together.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive. I always learn so much from our conversations.
It's always a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners, thanks for diving in with us. We hope this episode gave you a lot to think about, some exciting possibilities, maybe some things that make you stop and think twice. That's what we're all about here. Until next time, keep exploring.
Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash that like button. It helps the channel. And if you're new here or just haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future content. Oh, and don't forget to ring the bell icon so you'll be the first to know when we drop something new. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming up.